Hi, this is Steve Waldron, GIS coordinator and trainer here at the City of Richmond again. Today's video is entitled Map Layouts in ArcGIS Pro. It's subtitled The Basics of Making Hardcopy Maps. If you are new to ArcGIS Pro, you should have taken our curriculum all the way through migrating to ArcGIS Pro. And here you would have learned to access the city's standard GIS layers and to ensure that you have access to your ArcGIS Online account, which is used to operate ArcGIS Pro. And while our WebGIS curriculum focuses mostly on teaching users how to create interactive web mapping solutions for their customers, there still exists the use case for making hard copy maps. So this brief course will introduce users to making map layouts in ArcGIS Pro. Here we can see in the diagram that you've seen before that this is an elective for people that need to learn how to make hard copy maps. A map layout is the same concept that existed in ArcMap, where the GIS desktop software uses a blank page upon which the following types of elements can be added. The map itself is placed on the page. Text for things like titles or other descriptions is added. You can add north arrows, legends, pictures like JPEGs and PNG files, logos, things like that. You can add scale bars. So those are the types of things that you find on maps. One great thing about Pro over the legacy ArcMap product is that ArcGIS Pro will let you create both multiple maps and multiple layouts inside of a single Pro project. So instead of creating multiple ArcMap documents, you can have one Pro project and contain many maps. I will now proceed to demonstrate how to create a map layout in ArcGIS Pro. Here I've opened ArcGIS Pro, and there are two maps in this Pro project. One has been created. It's called Neighborhoods. You can see the various layers. One of the layers included here is called Neighborhoods. It also maps the locations of schools, fire stations, and public libraries. And there's a second map in this Pro project called Churches. And it is going to display all the places of worship that we have mapped inside of the city of Richmond. So here we can see the churches map. Two maps in one Pro project. Well, let's insert one map layout for making a map of neighborhoods. And let's make this a poster size map. We'll pretend that a poster was requested for a public meeting. So the way you insert a new layout into your Pro project is to go to the Insert menu, and there'll be an option next to New Map called New Layout. When you add a new layout, it's going to prompt you for identifying the page size you want for your hard copy map. I'm going to choose an ANSI 34-inch by 44-inch. So that's a pretty big poster. When the map starts out, it is in a portrait orientation, but we can change that. So now I'll show you the importance of the layout menu and ribbon in an attempt to change the orientation to be a landscape poster. So here you can see where it switched us over to the insert ribbon. I want to go back to the layout. So I'll click on the layout menu to change the ribbon. And here is the option where you can change the orientation. I'll change it to a landscape. We can see with the rulers that this is 44 inches by 34 inches on this axis. At this point, I'd like to tell you that when making maps, you will be interested in using both the layout ribbon and the insert ribbon. And you will be toggling back and forth between these two ribbons in order to accomplish your work. Something of particular interest is going to be the select tool, which you will find here on the layout ribbon. The select tool is what you can use to select the elements on the page and move them around or resize them. So if you've added a title, a map, a legend, things like that, and you want to interact with those features, you'll have to select them. And this is the tool that you will need to use. Let's move forward with creating our poster map, which will involve inserting elements onto the page from the Insert menu. So let's toggle back over to the Insert ribbon. And what we can do is click on Map Frame here. And notice it looks at the Pro project. It recognizes there's a church's map and there's a neighborhood's map. Well, we're going to go ahead and choose the neighborhood's map. I'm going to choose this one that shows a scale on it. And I'm going to drag a box on the page where I want the map to appear. You can see down here in the bottom right, a little spinning wheel that shows you that the map is attempting to draw. At this point, I would point out we are using Esri's, one of Esri's base maps. It's called the light gray base map. And getting this to display on the layout takes just a little bit of time to come up. But once it's up, it can be sent to the plotter and it will look just fine. So here I've inserted a map onto the layout page. Let's go back to the insert ribbon and add some more elements. Let's add the city logo. So remember, the insert ribbon makes sense. This is where you would go to insert things. Well, in this section called graphics and text, there's an option here for adding text, but there's also one for adding a picture. So I'm going to choose it. And I know I've got the city logo image file available for me here. So I'm going to select that as the image I want to insert. And I think I'll insert it right here. So here's the city logo. I can grab it, move it around where I think I want it to go. Let's insert a north arrow. So here you can see a section called Map Arounds. And if you click this down arrow, you can see the different styles of north arrows to choose from. I think I'll go ahead and choose this north arrow. I'll drag a spot where I want it to go on my map. And I'll just leave it here. Let's add a scale bar. So I'm going to come down here and I guess I'll just choose this scale bar. And I'm going to drag a location where I want the scale bar to appear. Usually the scale bar is at the bottom of the map. Okay, so now I've got a scale bar. I can grab it. I can resize it and move it exactly where I want it. And now I'd like to show you that you can actually zoom in and out on this map. You may have noticed, if I'm going to toggle back over to the map, I was zoomed in much closer before. But if I go to the layout, I'm zoomed out. Well, we can zoom in and out on the map. So what we can do is from the layout, we can use the navigate section here. If I click on navigate, I can pan on the page. There's also a section over here called map. So I can zoom in. Notice how the map is zooming in. So if you don't like the scale that's being displayed on the layout, maybe it doesn't match what's on the map, you can adjust that on the layout ribbon within this section here. The map is displaying the underlying light gray base map at this point. Having shown you how to zoom in on the map, I'm going to come back over here to navigate. I activate the navigate button. And now when I use my scroller wheel, I can zoom in on the page versus the map. Okay, so there's a difference, right? You can zoom in on the paper or you can zoom in on the actual map. And that's how you can do this within the layout ribbon when you're making your map. A lot of times you want to zoom in on the actual map page to see the details. So this will come in handy when we insert a legend. So I want to put a legend on my map. I currently don't see an option here to add a legend, and that's because you have to be on the insert ribbon. Remember I said you're going to be toggling back and forth between the layout properties and inserting things on the page. So let's come back to the map surrounds and we're going to insert a legend. So I'm going to drag a box where I want my legend to go. And notice it's kind of small compared to the size of the box I dragged. So let's say we want to do some detail work on the legend. We can zoom in on the layout page. And the easiest way to do that is with the scroller wheel of the mouse. So I'm going to go back to layout, click on navigate, and I'm going to zoom in. So here's where I want to do my work. Next thing I want to do is grab my select tool. Here I can see that the legend is still selected, but I'm going to right click on this feature and I'm going to choose an option called Convert to Graphics. What we can do is when we convert things to graphics, we can then resize them. So I'm converting this to graphics. I can grab the corner. Notice I'm changing the size of things so it's larger and easier to see on the map. I think this looks like a good size for my legend. Okay, I converted it to graphics. And now that it's a graphic, I'd like to ungroup it because you see how these texts in the legend are kind of small? I want these to be larger. Well, I can't interact with them because the whole thing is one big graphic. So you can right click on it and you can ungroup. So here's an option called ungroup. You can see that it broke things apart. It's got neighborhoods, schools, but I still can't get to the text. When I click on it, it grabs both items. So what we can do is select all the graphics and do an ungroup again. Whoops. Right click, ungroup. You can see how it broke it apart and now they're actually separate graphics. So for each one of these, I'll continue to ungroup. This one exploded things into many pieces and ungroup the last one. Okay, we want to resize the text. I'm going to select with the shift button held down, selecting all the text. Actually, before I do that, you see this here in my legend? It says all other values for the types of schools. I don't want this to appear in my legend, so I'm going to select both features and click the delete button. Then, because the select tool's available, I'm going to grab both of these neighborhood features and kind of move them up a little bit. I'm going to grab the public schools. I'm going to resize this a little bit and I'm going to center it over the school section. Okay, let's resize these text items. They need to be bigger. And notice when I select these features, and this is something we covered in our previous courses about migrating to Pro, depending on the objects you select, Pro wants to change the ribbon. So if you look up here, we can see that text and format has now appeared. So if I click on here, I can format the text. This will be important for when you're adding titles or other textual information on your maps. Here you can change the sizes, the fonts, the colors, those kinds of things. So let's change the size of these to be 18 point. So now they're larger, easier to read. Let's finish up the legend um, by making the public schools font even larger. It seems to be a little bit small for me. So we'll change this to be like a size 22, 2 point. And I'm going to select all my features. I'm going to nudge them over here closer to the map. And now I want to insert the word legend up here on top of this so people know this is a legend. So I'm going to come back to insert and I want to insert text. So I got to change my ribbon. Here's where I find my text. I'm going to click. Notice the format, it's selected. It's kind of small. So I'm going to go back to format. I'm going to make this much larger, 48. And then I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to type the word legend. I think I'll highlight it. And if I right click on text and you go to properties, you'll get a dialog pop over here on the right hand side. So this is important for you to know about anytime you're adding text to your maps. And you can alter the text symbol. So it's here that you can change like the appearance. This is where you can change the colors as well. But I came over here because I want legend to be underlined. And I'll apply it. And now you can see legend is underlined. I'm going to select that feature and move it here. And now I'd like to put a box all the way around my legend. So I have to go back to insert. And here we can see we can insert shapes. So I'm going to drag a box. And then I'm going to go and make sure I've got my select tool. I'm going to select all the features. Notice how we exploded or ungrouped all of our graphics? Well, now I'm going to group them all back together. You might notice over here in the table of contents, each of these elements has been broken out and appears as a specific item in the layouts table of contents. Well, I'm going to right click on all these selected features and I'm going to tell the system to group them. So I've grouped them back. So now it's all one thing. We go back to navigate. Okay, things are really coming together now. I've got my nice looking legend. I've got my north arrow. I've got my logo. Something I'm missing is a title. So let's add a title and we'll add a border to the entire map. So in order to do this, we got to go back to the insert ribbon, which we've done. And I want to add text. I want the title to appear right here. So I'm going to click and drag a box. I'm going to type the title. We'll call it Neighborhoods of Richmond Study Area. I'm going to go back to my layout, make sure my select button is, see, it's not active right now. I'm going to activate it and now I can move this around. Okay, I want to put a border around this whole thing. So that's an insert operation. It's just a graphic. So I'm going to go and click and drag where I want that to go. And boom, I've got a border all around my map. that we can also update the name property of the layout. So just like the maps have names, this map is called neighborhoods, this map is called churches, this layout's called layout. Well, you know what? We can change that. All we got to do is go to the properties of the layout over here on the left, and we can change it. So let's call this neighborhood poster. Okay. We know it's a layout because of the little icon we see. It's different than a map icon, but the name even helps us, right? I know that in my pro project, this is the neighborhood poster. Remember how I mentioned that pro projects can have more than one layout? Well, let's create a letter size layout for the church's map. We no longer want to create a poster, so we'll go back to the insert ribbon and we'll insert another layout just like we did before. For the page size, I want it to be 8.5 by 11. So here we can see a new layout got added. I'm going to keep it as a portrait, but I want to insert the map frame. So here on the insert ribbon, we can insert the map frame, and I'm going to choose churches this time. Okay, I've just pasted the churches on my 8.5 by 11 size layout, and now I've got two map layouts in the same pro project. Up until this point, I've demonstrated how layouts of different sizes can be created, and the maps in your pro project can be inserted onto them, along with other mapping elements like north arrows, scale bars, pictures, legends, and text. The use of the layout and insert ribbons have been demonstrated, along with the format ribbon that made an appearance for altering text items. In just a short while, I will refer you to other ESRI learning resources. But before I do that, I want to show you how to print or output your map layouts. You need to make sure that your map layout is the active feature in your pro project. So here, neighborhoods is the active element. Here, the layout is the active element. So make sure the layout is active when you want to print it. And then you would go to the share ribbon. The share ribbon is up here. And you will see an output section right here. It's the last section on this ribbon. The print layout is what you would click on to send it to a printer or a plotter if you're in the case of printing a poster, right? So this is pretty standard stuff. The other option, you can export. So you could export it as an image or you could export it as a PDF. So those are the two different ways to get your hard copy products output from Pro if you're not creating an interactive web mapping application for somebody in ArcGIS Online. So in conclusion, I've just provided a very brief intro to the basics of how you can make hard copy map products from Pro, but I did not get into all the details of how you can do actual cartography, advanced labeling of features in your map, and things like that that you can do in Pro. This type of mapping subject is, it's a very deep and wide topic. But good for us that ESRI has many educational resources available, which we can use to learn all these topics at our own pace and according to our own schedules. So now I will show you the Esri training catalog and show you some classes of interest that you might want to take. We will get out of Pro and navigate to my web browser. And a note here that after this video shows you where and how to go search for targeted classes, we will present one last PowerPoint slide after the demonstration, which you can refer to as well. So having opened my web browser, I'll just point out, here is the URL I am at. It's esri.com, training catalog, and I'm on the search page. So let's do a search, and also I'll point out I'm logged in. So you have to log in with your ArcGIS online account on the training website because that will unlock many classes for you to take for free. So I'm going to do a search for photography. And when it's done, I'll scroll down and we can see these are the courses that were returned based on the search for the word cartography. So there's one here called Cartographic Creations in ArcGIS Pro. This is a tutorial. It's free. It's 2 hours of your time. I'm going to click on it and we'll just take a brief look. And some of the goals, it shows you how to symbolize features, how to add and do labels, and how to configure a layout. So that's some of the stuff that we just talked about. So this is an Esri tutorial that you can take. I'm going to go back. Let's do another search. Labeling is an important topic in ArcGIS Pro. So when you want to label things on your map, there are techniques that you can use. So I did a search for labeling. And if I scroll down, we can see there's one here called Labeling Map Features. This is a web course. Notice that the little padlock is unlocked. That's because I'm logged in as someone in the City of Richmond organization. So just like you can take this course. It will be free. If you don't log in, it's going to show up with the padlock as being shown as locked because not just anyone can take this class, but you are allowed to if you log in with your city issued ArcGIS online account. So this is a good class, I think, to learn how to do labeling. We'll do one more search. We're going to do a search for ArcGIS Pro. That's a big topic. But here, there's a class called Symbolizing Map Layers. And symbolizing map layers is an important technique. I guess we could call that we could call that cartography. Notice all these different classes. It's not jumping to my immediate vision here. Let's do a search for symbolizing map. Okay, here it is, symbolizing map layers. It's a web course and it's unlocked. So this is another good course, I think, if you want to learn how to make your GIS layers look certain ways, right? You don't have to take the default colors and styles that are used. So I'm going to flip back to the presentation. And here is the URL for the um, training catalog. And these are 3 of the classes that I just highlighted. So you can do searches for them by name if you like from that URL. And of course, there are many more classes that you guys can find, but I just wanted to give you a push in the right direction. So good luck and happy mapping.